Hello, I'm Father Joe Gambala, pastor of St. Malachi Catholic Church in Sterling Heights, Archdiocese of Detroit. Welcome to Saint of the Day, and today's January the 16th. In the book of Acts, as well as in the letter of Romans, St. Paul talks about Priscilla. When Priscilla and her husband Aquila heard him, they took him being St. Paul, home with them. And Paul explained to them more correctly what it meant to be a Christian. Priscilla and Aquila were Jewish people who lived in Rome. They were merchants, and they were very successful. In fact, they were tent makers, like St. Paul was a tent maker. Well, during the reign of Emperor Claudius, pagan emperor of the time, he kicked all the Jewish people out of Rome, and so Aquila and his wife Priscilla traveled to Greece, near Corinth, and that's where they met Paul. Being fellow tent makers, they probably met talking about the trade, because we know Paul made tents throughout those 30 years of traveling to support himself in the ministry. And so they probably started talking about tents, and then Paul went home with them and began to tell them about the Lord, and that Jesus was the Messiah that all the Jews had hoped for, and he had arrived, and that you put your faith in him, in his death and his resurrection, you too could be saved. Well, Aquila and Priscilla were very open to this and asked that the Lord would enter their lives, and were baptized by St. Paul. After becoming Christians themselves, they traveled with Paul to Ephesus. And while Paul was sitting in that jail for 2 years in Ephesus, Aquila and Priscilla were very responsible in making sure plenty of food was brought to him. In the wintertime, a blanket was always brought to him, and took care of him and took his letters out and that he would write to many different communities and make sure those letters got there, and were very, very helpful. In the letter of the Romans, Paul talks about how much he was in debt to the work of Aquila and Priscilla. Later on, Aquila and Priscilla returned to Rome, and one of their houses was one of the first 40 houses in Rome where Mass was celebrated while Peter was Bishop of Rome. They were martyred by Nero in the persecution of Christians.